with the quickness in which they provide those services. Their primary goal and objective is to achieve 100% customer satisfaction, and they won't settle for anything less. Their crews travel within a 100-mile radius of the Kansas City, Missouri metropolitan area, which includes cities on both sides of the Kansas and Missouri state line. Tycon Company, LLC, 4435 Prospect Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, 64130, 816-921-0473. Tycon Company, LLC, quality with quickness. Proud sponsor of Wake Up KC. Morrill and James Bank and Trust is proud to sponsor KUAW Radio at Morrill and James Bank
on this very illustrious network on KUAW.org or streaming on YouTube. Go to KUAW, go to YouTube and type in KUAW. You can also hit the live button on YouTube after you type in KUAW and see whatever show is on live. You can also go backwards and see other previous shows of this show or other shows on this network as well. You can also go to KUAW-LPFM 98.5 on Facebook. You can view and listen to this show live as well. And of course on KUAW.org and the TuneIn app. Just type in KUAW and we will pop right up. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go to KUAW985@gmail.com or at 816-599-6893. It's good to be back. I've just now getting back used to being on the show because I had a little hiatus on football. But one thing I do want to say, shout out to Raytown Middle's football team, 6-0 for the A-team. And also I want to give us another shout out to RMS Radio. They will be having their first broadcast possibly live, not next week on Thanksgiving weekend, but the week after. So check them out at 7 o'clock on KUAW. Also, I want to give a shout out to Mesmeride Dallas. They are the next generation. They will be on this upcoming third Sunday at 4 o'clock on KUAW. And also, I want to give a shout out to my students. Today, they're having their blue and white game for basketball, for girls basketball and boys basketball at Raytown Middle School. My apologies for not being there. I had to come and do this, so I'm with you in spirit. Speaking of my students, I do want to say that I am here by myself, and I kind of want to have this segment called Classes in Session because I do want to educate my listeners and viewers on a few things because we are in a very testy situation in this country. Where a lot of racial tension is up, and it's at an all-time spike. And the culprit behind this, people like to say, well, I want to blame Donald Trump, or I want to blame the Republicans, or no, it's the Democrats. I mean, it's you really can't blame anybody because America has always been a very racially driven country, a very racist country. As a matter of fact, if you do searches, America is the #1 most racist country on the planet. Next is Australia, and then next is India. But America, we hold that title very dear in this particular country. And the thing about the racism in this country is the oppressor is so smooth that the oppressor can put racial things in motion to where the oppressor can sit back and allow us to oppress ourselves. And I say that to say that racism is common speech in this country. We can say things to one another as simple conversation or a salutation or a term of endearment, and we are still racially doing things to one another, and we don't even know it. So I would like to entitle this lesson today as subliminal racism. So subliminal racism is the name of this particular lesson today. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a slew of things we can go on and discuss, but I may not get through it all today, but I'm gonna go ahead and make this happen. So the very, very first one, when we were all children, no matter how old you are, how young you are, there was a game that we played. called a freeze tag or hide and go seek or any type of game where someone has to be it. And in order to signify who is it, we played a game, or we did a selection process called Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And it kind of goes, Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And when I was a kid, I used to always think, okay, something sounds kind of off with that. Tiger does not necessarily fit when you're doing Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And then when I sat and thought about it and I did my research, I'm like, wow, that particular nursery rhyme is very offensive, because the modern inoffensive version comes from a similar older one. Now, the one where you say catch a tiger by his toe, that's very inoffensive. However, the more offensive one, instead of saying tiger, you say nigger. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a nigger by its toe. If he hollers, let him go. Rudyard Kipling mentions it as a counting out song. It's for a way for kids to eliminate candidates for being hide and seek. So, of course, you know, being it is always being known as a negative thing. Now you know why, based on the original connotation of the word. You can kind of look this up on Land and Sea Tales for Scouts and Guides. I know some of our older listeners probably can attest to that particular terminology or the original connotation of that song was a very negative and offensive one, because back then it wasn't popular to be considered that particular name, as well as being popular as the one being it. So if you think about it, everyone runs from the person that's it. Everyone hides from the person that's it. In this country, you are being taught to hide from or run from someone that's associated with that negative connotation. So the next time you're playing hide and seek, you might not want to do Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, based on the connotation. And I think, matter of fact, let me do some further research while I'm here on the air. Like I always tell my students, I always Google what I'm saying. Always do your research. I want to say that the name Rudyard Kipling, I want to say that name sounds very familiar. No, he didn't write Tarzan. I think, you know what? I think you're right, Mr. Walker. He is a writer. And, Joseph Rudyard he wrote the Jungle Book. Yeah, he wrote the Jungle Book. And Kipling, he wrote the Jungle Book, and he was a Britishman. I'm sorry, he was an Englishman. I'm sorry, he was a guy from India, but he was a guy from India during the British imperialistic age, around that time period. And during that time period, the class system came in, and if you were not associative with British, the British ways, then you were seen as negative. So, that name stuck out. So pretty much the brother who wrote the Jungle Book is informing us that the original connotation of the phrase is catch a N-word by its tail. So, okay, all right, enough with that one. Yeah, because it kind of makes you look at him a little bit differently. Because really, if you look at the Jungle Book and really look at some of the characters and how the characters are portrayed, it kind of makes sense on how this terminology is widespread. Okay, all right. Let's see. Let's jump into because a lot of them are associated towards black folks, and I don't want to make it an all black thing, but man, it's crazy. All right, let's look at another one. Hooligan. Whenever you get in trouble or you're associated with misbehavior or mischief, you're being called a hooligan. Wow, those hooligans over there, or that hooligan over there is tripping, or you're being a hooligan, or you act like a hooligan. And for a while, you're like, man, you know what is a hooligan? There's a wrestler named Sheamus who used to wear hooligans on his T-shirt, and I'm like, wow, okay, what's a hooligan? So the phrase started to appear in London newspapers around 1898. The Oxford Online Dictionary speculates it evolved from the surname Houlihan. And does that sound familiar? Houlihan. Included in a popular pub song about a rowdy Irish family. Other sources like Clarence Rook's book, The Hooligan Knights, claim that Patrick Houlihan actually existed. He was a bouncer and a thief in Ireland. Well, whatever the case, somewhere an Irish family landed a bad rap. So most notably, the term evolved into a football hooliganism. It's a destructive behavior from European football, but soccer fans. So pretty much a hooligan is a name for a very unruly person, typically associated with an Irish person. So if you call an Irishman a hooligan or refer to someone Irish in that particular term, that's an offensive term. Now, there is a restaurant called Houlihan's that we all go to. They got a little happy hour special and all that, But that particular name is a negative connotation of someone from that particular Irish family. And we all know that sometimes a family's association with a different culture, it all blends in. So call an Irishman a hooligan, that's a very disrespectful and inappropriate term. Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's scroll back to Rudyard Kipling real quick. He was a poet as well, and Mr. Walker just pulled up. He did write a poem called The White Man's Burden. So I want you all to look that up, too. And I think there was a movie called The White Man's Burden, too, that was a role reversal of black and white. So go ahead and check that out, and you'll see where Mr. Kipling's mind was when it came to the actual Jungle Book and some of his other stories, because he always do your research. Layers. But back to the whole hooligan thing. If you look at the British Empire, I remember I was watching something and also doing some research, and Irishmen are the country of Ireland, they get a bad rap when it comes to the British Empire. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of parallels between Irishmen and black men. As a matter of fact, if you look at your history, if you look at the Civil War, the majority of the individuals that fought in the Civil War for the North or the Union were Irishmen and black men. It was very rare you saw individuals from the North that fought in the war. As soon as the Irishmen got off the boat, they had to go fight for their country. As soon as blacks were freed, or I shouldn't say, free themselves from bondage, they had to fight for their country. And you don't hear that a lot, but that's how around that time period you saw a lot of Irish families and black families merging and interfacing. You saw a lot of interracial marriages and interracial relationships between blacks and Irishmen around that time, because they were both negatively disenfranchised. Well, Irishmen because of from the British Empire, hence the term hooligan, because they said, okay, well they're very unruly, they're very subpar. That's not what I'm saying. That's what the racism is saying from that British Empire. And then of course they come over here and same thing. It may not have been on the same level as what blacks went through, but they were discriminated against as well around that particular time period. So I wouldn't sit up and refer to an Irishman as a hooligan, because that's not a positive thing to say. Okay, let's go ahead and check that one off. We're just going through the whole racial thing. I'm also, one of my goals is to let people know some of the language that we hear, because sometimes people can be saying things to you, you don't even know that they're being disrespectful. Okay, now let's go back to further discuss our Irish brothers and sisters. Paddy wagons. Paddy wagon is a slang for a police car. I know you hear it in rap music, you hear it in old school mob movies, but paddy wagons. So in modern slang, paddy wagon means a police car, but the term paddy is something else. Paddy originated in the late 1700s as a shortened term of Patrick, and then later a pejorative term for an Irishman. Now, I'm gonna stop right there. You're gonna say, well, it's just a name. Well, sometimes the oppressor, an oppressive person can use a name. Hence, I said that a name can be associated with a negative group. For example, in the 70s, when the police would pull over black men, they would refer to the black man as Tyrone, because they were being funny. Hence, because I guess Tyrone was a negative name for a black man, associating him with being a pimp. You get pulled over, the police officer might say, all right, Tyrone, get out of the car. I want you to watch an old movie that's either depicted from the 70s or from the 70s, and watch what a police officer calls a black man. Patrick was a negative term for an Irishman. Matter of fact, if you look at some of your old movies, Patty is another name for a negative term for an Irishman. Wagon naturally refers to a vehicle, so paddy wagon either stem from the large number of Irish police officers or the perception that rowdy, drunken Irishmen constantly end up in the back of police cars. Neither one is nice. Now, yeah, there were a lot of Irish police officers in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and they were stereotyped against based on how they spoke and how they carried themselves. Which was not a cool thing. You know, they made fun of their culture, made fun of their accent, and then of course we have the negative connotation that the majority of Irish men are drunk and unruly, and they get arrested a lot. So, just like they said, neither one is nice, neither one is cool, neither one is respectful. So when you hear Paddy Wagon, break down the name Paddy, Patrick. They're making fun of Irish men. Okay. Yeah, I know this is. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but hey, you know it is what it is. Okay. Some of the things that we say. First off, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I asked Mr. Walker for permission to say this, but and he said yes, based on how I say it. Black people have a bad habit of using the word nigger, and that term was used as a term to tear us down. And I think it's so stupid that we say, well, we own that word. So we own this word, or we took ownership back of the word, but the word's not making us rich. Well, yeah, such and such raps, and he says it. But who owns that rap label? You know, who's telling this black man to say this? The owner of the white label, who's probably not black. So you're saying that we own a word that's used to tear us down. But then on top of that, we say, okay, this white man or this Asian man has permission. We give him permission to say this word. How can you give someone permission to say a word that is used to tear you down? So sometimes when you sit up here and you say things that that is designed originally to tear you down, but then you take it and you put it in your own language and other people use it too, and then you get mad for saying it, that's like me slapping you, and then you turn around and slap me back, and I get upset with you for slapping me. You know, it doesn't make sense. Hence for this one called the itis. More commonly known as a food coma, the phrase directly alludes to the stereotype of laziness associated with African Americans. It stems from a longer and incredibly offensive version. It's called niggeritis. Now, the modern vernacular dropped the racial slur, leaving a full scientific diagnosis for a tired feeling after you get a full belly from eating too much food. We recommend using the technical term postprandial somnolence. Okay. Or just say food coma. But when you say, you know, I got niggeritis or I got the itis because you ate too much on Thanksgiving, and then your white brother or sister says, oh yeah, I got the itis, or you got the itis, why get mad if you use it in front of them? You know, I mean, we gotta watch what we say. You know, now I'm not telling you what to say. I'm not telling you what not to say. I'm telling you to watch what you say. Because if you go to work and you say a comment like that, you know, I just had lunch and well, I got niggeritis or I got the itis, and then your coworker who's not of African descent says that, and then you get mad and you want to go to HR. No, it don't work like that. You gotta watch what comes out your mouth first. You know, sometimes we have to take responsibility for some of the things that come at us. Now, I know I might get some flack off of that one, but it is what it is. You know, I mean, you know, that's like, you know, poison is designed to kill you. So why go out and take it in small doses? Well, I own it. No, you don't. How do you own something that was here before you? How can you own something that was designed by someone else to destroy you? Doesn't make sense. How can you give someone permission to destroy you? Yeah, let me get up my soapbox. Okay, next one. Take up the itis. So on Thanksgiving, you get full. If you in mixed company, I strongly suggest you say food coma. All right, let's see. Now, if you ever was asked to do something and you said no can do, you think that that's saying that you can't do something. Or long time no see, if you haven't seen no one in a while, you think that's okay to say that. But in all actuality, it's not. Out of all the expressions that I've discussed, you've probably more than likely said either one of those two at one point. For example, can I borrow, let's see, wait a minute. I can't get you on YouTube. I'm listening on the internet. Yeah, someone just chimed in that they can't get us on the on YouTube. If you're listening, we're working on that right now. So try to look at YouTube again. Okay. If someone came at you and asked you to do something and you couldn't do it, or you weren't able to do it for them, you probably said, "Oh, you got it."
No.
Oh no. Okay.
It's recorded, but it's not doing it live.
Oh, okay. It's recording, but it's not doing it live on YouTube. Is it fixable?
I gotta see if I can change it to live while it's going.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're working on it right now, YouTube fans. Okay. So, for example, if going back to what I said, if someone asks you to do something, you probably more than likely said no can do. Or if you haven't seen someone in a while, like for example, I wasn't on the show for a while, you probably say, "Hey, Tyrone, long time no see." Out of all those expressions, we more than likely use that more than anything else. It might be surprising, but those are phrases on the list, but they're actually born out of a mean-spirit mockery. In the early 20th century, no can do and other broken English phrases are ways that they made fun of Chinese immigrants. At the end of the 19th century, we had an influx of Chinese immigrants coming into the country shortly after the Civil War. They were very responsible for working on your railroad system that you see right now. Your Chinese, your blacks, and your Native Americans, and of course your Irishmen. They pretty much built the American Wild West, as well as our brothers and sisters who were south of the border. But with our Chinese immigrants and other people who were ESL who attempted to communicate, it was a mockery of native of their language. And plus, back then, when people would tease individuals, they would say no can do or a long time no see or other phrases similar in their accent, trying to mock how they speak our language, which is very disrespectful. And of course, you can think about the Chinese immigrants or any other Asian immigrants. Of course, that mockery would be done with the slanting of the eyes or something like that to signify even more that you're being disrespectful to that particular culture. So kind of think about that. You know, next time someone says, "Well, can you do something for me?" and you say, "No, can do." Think about that. If you really say it to yourself over and over and over again, yeah, it does sound like a mockery of broken English. Exactly. Long time no see. Also. Okay. Next one. Sometimes, if someone is not sane or someone is not on the same plane as you mentally, you always say off the reservation. And as soon as I said off the reservation, it should come to your mind exactly what group is being discriminated against. Off the reservation is a phrase that people use nowadays to describe someone who is deviating from what is expected of them. For example, if you're supposed to be at work on time at 7 o'clock in the morning, but you tend to come in late, okay, well you're going against the grain, so you're off the reservation. Or if we're all celebrating a birthday party and you come in starting some mess, that's you're off the reservation. So basically, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, someone might say that you're off the reservation right now. Well, back in the 19th century, and that time period was very tense for Native Americans. It had a very different and specific meaning. As Key Molesky at NPR explains, the phrase literally referred to Native Americans breaking strict U.S. government rules and leaving their designated reservation land without proper authority. So back then, Native Americans were told to stay on a particular piece of land. So I don't like that. This is their country, their land, and you come and take it, and you tell them, okay, you only stay in that corner of your land. That's like me coming to your house saying, okay, I know this is your house, but I only want you to stay in the basement while I'm here. That doesn't make sense. That's exactly what they were going through. So if they left from it, they were off the reservation. Local authorities would send telegrams and messages along the lines of, currently no Indians are off the reservation without authority, or we've located a band of Indians living off the reservation and plan to arrest them. Now, think about what I said earlier. Off the reservation means that you're deviating from what's expected of someone else. So if it's expected for a Native American person to stay on a particular piece of land and not move from it, if they deviate from it, they're off the reservation. So think about that. Next time someone's not on the same page as you, or someone's not doing what's expected of them, and you say off the reservation, look at where it's coming from. That's messed up, though. I mean, you sit there and tell someone that I want you to stay on a certain piece of land that's yours. All of this is very uncomfortable, but I think this is probably one of the top ones that really is pretty uncomfortable. Let's see. We have a few more to go. But what I want to do is take a brief break and, take a brief break. So let's go ahead and take a, couple minute commercial break, and we'll be back. Source at Inkwell.
Tyrone Company, LLC, specializes in a wide range of construction services, which includes the removal and replacement of concrete curbs, sidewalk, driveway, and paving. They pride themselves in the quality of their service, but more importantly, with the quickness in which they provide those services. Their primary goal and objective is to achieve 100% customer satisfaction, and they won't settle for anything less. Their crews travel within a 100-mile radius of the Kansas City, Missouri metropolitan area, which includes cities on both sides of the Kansas and Missouri state line. Tyrone Company, LLC, 4435 Prospect Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, 64130, 816-921-0473. Tyrone Company, LLC, quality with quickness. Proud sponsor of Wake Up KC. Morrill and Janes Bank and Trust is proud to sponsor KUAW Radio. At Morrill and Janes Bank and Trust, banking locally ever after is turning your dream into reality. Whether you're looking for your first home or want more space for your growing family, we have the mortgage solution for you. We believe in the importance of home ownership and building strong communities. Visit us at mjbtrc.com to apply online for your mortgage today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. Deciding where your child will go to school next fall? Overwhelmed by the options? The City School Fair brings together Kansas City's elementary, middle, and high schools for a one-day event where one-on-one conversations can be had with school representatives. 55 district, charter, and private schools will be on hand to answer all of your questions Saturday, November the 10th, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. at the Central Library, 14 West 10th Street in downtown.
Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. on KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, Kansas City's global community radio station. You can listen to this broadcast on a couple of ways. You can check us out on KUAW.org, or go to the TuneIn app and type in KUAW, and we'll pop right up. You can also view us on a number of ways too, on KUAW-LPFM 985 on Facebook, on the Facebook Live page. You can also hit us up on YouTube. Type in KUAW, click live, and you will see this show right now. Also on on YouTube and the Facebook page, you can also scroll back and check out older versions of this show. as well as other shows on this network as well. A lot of amazing content, a lot of diverse content as well. This is a growing station, so check us out and see what else is on there that you might like. You can also call in 816-599-6893 and email us at kuaw985@gmail.com. This broadcast is subliminal racism. Subliminal racism in a manner of things that we may say that are racially inappropriate that we don't know because we've been speaking them since we can remember. Oppression, the design of oppression is to sit back and allow individuals to oppress themselves. And sometimes when we sit and discuss things and say things, we have racial things in our daily speech that when we're talking to one another, we're tearing each other down. So I'm just educating you on some things that we all say or that we possibly say, and we don't even think that there's anything negative or anything racially inappropriate to it. So I left off on a few of them. Let's see. Let me find another one. When we say hip hop hooray, we probably think it's a phrase for, I don't know, a party or a popular, what's that rap group? Naughty by Nature, hip hop hooray. Oh yeah, see, Mr. Walker, no, Naughty by Nature. So hip hop hooray, though steeped in controversy, the first part of this phrase might relate to the hip riots, anti-Semitic demonstrations that started in Germany in the 19th century. Germans reportedly cheered hip hip as they forced Jews from their homes across Europe. HIP is likely an acronym for Hero Salamia Est Perdita, we pronounce hep hep, and that is a negative connotation of celebrating the excavation of Jewish people from their homes. Hep hep is a very anti-Semitic term, and as you can see, it started from the 19th century, as well as it says it probably goes all the way back to the Crusades for the Battle of Jerusalem. But I don't think this is a possible, this is a probable term to use, especially with what's going on right now. And if you really sit and listen to what you're saying, it kind of makes, it does make sense. It starts to register. Well, yeah, that doesn't sound right. Like I said, everything that I say, please look it up. Please Google it. And if I say anything wrong or if anything is not adding up, please comment on the Facebook live stream, the YouTube stream, or call in at 816-599-6893 or email kuaw985@gmail.com. All right. Let's see. Moving right along, trucking right along. Let's see. And it's crazy because it's a lot of negative connotations. All right. Next one. Sold down the river. If someone says, man, Mr. Walker really sold me down the river, I'm saying that he betrayed me, or he cheats, or he did something really scandalous to me. But the phrase has a much darker and more literal meaning. Okay? During slavery in the U.S., masters in the North often sold their misbehaving slaves by sending them down to the Mississippi River plantations in Mississippi, where conditions were much more harsh. Think about that movie, 12 Years a Slave. Where did they send Solomon? They sent him down to the South, Mississippi. Look at Django. Where do they go? The most scandalous plantation was in Mississippi. Think about some of the other story that you heard. They always send them to Mississippi. Matter of fact, let's look at Mississippi. Mississippi is the most racist state in the United States, and it's been like that for a long time. So if you're misbehaving, if you try to escape, if you don't step and fetch like the master tells you to, they more than likely sold you. They put you on a boat and you went down the Mississippi River to Mississippi or some southern plantation, because yes, southern plantations were the harshest. So if someone sold you down the river, you were literally sold down the river. On the river, they're telling you it's a slavery connotation. I'm gonna get off of that because I got a little flashback of that, because slavery was so harsh, and when people sit up there and make comments like slavery didn't exist, or slavery's a choice, or get over it, no, because we still say things that indirectly put people in a state of enslavement when we say stuff like, selling someone down the river. And really, to be quite honest, think about that. When you say selling me, right there is telling you, okay, you're a person and you're selling it. You shouldn't even say stuff like that. Okay. All right, let's see what we have next. Rule of thumb. How many of us ever heard that one? Yeah, well, it's not rule of thumb, too. Or is it rule of thumb to say that? Is it rule of thumb to do that? Am I following the rule of thumb? Well, no, this phrase didn't originate in someone's misogynistic judge's chambers. But the idea has permeated an etymological discussion to often debunk it. For example, the Telegraph reported just this year that Sir Francis Buller ruled in 1886 that a man should beat his wife with a stick no thicker than his thumb, which thus created the popular and sexist idiom. Now, if you don't know what an idiom is a form of speech that figurative language that is a phrase that should be taken figuratively and not literally. But way back in 1998, wordsmith William Safire told a different story in the New York Times. He cites that rule of thumb as early as 1692, said then again it was established proverb in 1721. So pretty much if you want to beat your wife, you can beat her with something no thicker than your thumb, a stick no thicker than your thumb. And of course, if you look at your thumb, which are we talking about, this way or this way? Now, misogyny, and inappropriate dominance over a woman is in your law books too. As a matter of fact, I need to find where this particular law is, but I know it's a southern state. It says that it's legal to beat your wife on a Sunday on the steps of City Hall. Think about that. And of course, you're probably like, what? But keep in mind, you are living in a country where it's still legal for something to happen to me or people that look like me in certain towns after the sun sets. So there are a lot of laws that are very discriminatory that are still on the books. And rule of thumb is one of them. So next time you say, is it rule of thumb? What you're really saying is, I can legally beat my wife as long as the stick is no thicker than my thumb. All right. Yeah. Peanut gallery. You ever hear someone say, well, let's go to the peanut gallery. Let's check out the peanut gallery. Or they're sitting in the peanut gallery. The phrase intends to reference a heckler or a critic. Usually someone is ill-informed. So if someone is heckling me right now on my broadcast, then I will say, well, yeah, you all from the peanut gallery. Well, in reality, the peanut gallery, that name is a section in a theater. It's usually the cheapest seats or the worst seats where black people sat during the era of vaudeville. Now, back then, during the vaudeville era, it's like, the 1920s, early 20th century, the theater was very segregated. Blacks could not sit in the same areas as whites. Blacks were sat in the most nastiest, cheapest, inappropriate seats where you probably couldn't even see anything, let alone probably hear the show. And they called it the peanut gallery because that's where we sat. So the next time you say the peanut gallery, especially in a classroom full of students, you're pretty much saying those black people sitting over there in those bad seats. So it's very you gotta watch what you say. Man, you know what? And as I'm thinking about that, I remember being a student in class and hearing a teacher refer to us as being in the peanut gallery. So I wonder if they actually knew what that meant. And sometimes people say, well, I didn't know. And yeah, people say racially inappropriate things and they just don't know. It's one thing to not know and you're cool with being educated versus not knowing and then you're denying and rejecting the education. But what's worse is knowing what you're saying and daring somebody to correct you. All right, let's find another one. Do we have any comments on the Facebook live stream? I know we had a lot of shares. I appreciate you all for sharing this.
Bill Buck, let's see more here. Keep unity always.
Keep unity always. I like that.
Bill Buck.
Bill Buck. All right. Thank you, Mr. Buck, for saying that. That was it? Okay. That's all good. Yeah, but I see this. It was shared a few times, so I definitely appreciate that.
Forrest Tyson put in there that I despise the word picnic.
Yes, and Forrest Tyson, thank you for saying. Man, you know what, man, I need to get this. Man, look, Forrest is on point. Yes, picnic. That's one word I refuse to use. Picnic is really used. I mean, it's really called picnic, and it's short for pick a nigga. Now, during the early 20th century. Late 19th century, excuse me, blacks were lynched a lot, and they made it into a holiday. It was an actual festival. If a black person was picked in the picnic festival, and they would literally be hung and lynched. And people would sit down a blanket and actually watch this and enjoy a nice meal while a person of African descent is being lynched. And when you are lynched, it goes beyond hanging. You are hung, you are beaten, you are burned, you are quartered, you are castrated, you were tarred and feathered, you were beaten. All that went on at picnics. The creepiest thing I saw, I have an uncle who is very in tune with that era of time. And he gave me a book to read. And in that book, it was a book of every photographed lynching in the United States. And I remember making my students read this book my first year teaching. And of course you say, well, why would you do that? Well, they need to know. And there was one particular scene in this book where it was a father and son watching a lynching take place. And he's pointing, and the kid's sitting up here smiling. And of course you're saying, well, no, that didn't happen. Of course it did, because if you go scroll back to the Wild West days, between 1875 and 1870 to the early 1900s, when people were hung, it was a family event. If you go back to 13th, 14th century, the Renaissance era, 15th, 16th century also, executions were public also. There's been times where family men and family women were hung or beheaded or quartered right in front of their families. It was public. So it's nothing new. Executions were always public. But yeah, Forrest Tyson was right. The term picnic, I don't use it either, because that term, I don't know any black man or any black woman that loved going to picnics around that time period, if not now. You know, picnic tables, picnic blanket. Those were designed as a means of comfort for us to sit down, for them to sit down and watch people that look like me get lynched and hung. Also, slave traders would come to pick a slave for their plantation, hence the term pick a nigger, picnic. So they would go to plantation and say, I want that one there, or I want that one there. So, yeah, very negative connotation. Thank you for that, Mr. Tyson, and also Paula Love for that side of information. So do not go to a room full of blacks and say, let's go have a picnic. I don't think you would be happy with the menu that they serve you. It'd probably be a good old-fashioned dose of beatdown. Yeah. Oh, you know, also family picnics. Don't say that either. All right. Let's see. Now, this one was very hard for me because when I lived in Spain, they always talked about gypsies. Okay, throughout Europe, you have gypsies in Spain, you have gypsies in Romania, you have gypsies in London. Gypsies are a nomadic group of people who are either of Jewish religion or Christian religion, and they're very nomadic. They move around, and they are very close knit. Gyp or gypsy likely evolved as a shortened version of gypsy, more correctly known as the Romani. Now, Romani, let's talk about that. When we think about the Holocaust, we think the Jews were the only ones that were put inside those concentration camps. Jews were put in there. Blacks were put in concentration camps over in Europe. Yes, they were. Homosexuals was put in, and also Romani people also. Romani is an ethnic group now mostly in Europe and America. The Romani typically traveled a lot and made their money by selling goods. Business disputes naturally arose, and the masses start thinking of Romani as swindlers. So if you think about it, you know, when people think of gypsies, they think of people who do some slick stuff. So today the term gyp has been synonymous with cheating someone out of money. So when you call someone who is Romani a gypsy, you're being disrespectful. You're saying disrespectful. You're saying that pretty much all you're good for is robbing me out of my money. So the Romani is the name of the group. Gypsy is the negative term used towards these people. I have a student who is from Russia, and you know,
service, but more importantly, with the quickness in which they